Good afternoon. I'm Alice Newland, President of the League of Women Voters of Manatee County. On behalf of the League, I welcome you to our presentation today on building a multilingual community in public schools. The challenge of providing an excellent education for Manatee students is daunting when they speak no English or English is not their first language. 13% of the students in Manatee schools fit this category. Although Spanish is the most frequent first language, Manatee students have 95 different languages as their first language. Our speakers today will help us understand the nature of these members of our community and the current and proposed programs in Manatee County schools, their challenges and successes. Today's presentation is being recorded and will be available on our website, lwvmanatee.org, like League of Women Voters, manatee.org. Our speakers will be answering questions at the end of the presentation, so please put your questions in chat. Our League's educational chair, Mary Lynn Parker, is a lifelong Manatee County resident and a retired educator who ended her 35-year career as Executive Director of Academics for the Bradenton County School District. Mary Lynn will be our moderator today. Mary Lynn?
Thank you, Alice. Our presenters today are Cynthia Ellenstar from Unidos Now, Deborah Estes with the Manatee School District, and Dr. Ruby Zickafoos from the Manatee School of the Arts Charter School. Cynthia Ellenstar is the Program Director of Unidos Now. She will give us a historical and current overview of the varied demographics of Spanish speakers in Manatee County, as well as the unique needs and resources available. Our second speaker is Deborah Estes, Director of Esol, which means English speakers of other languages, as well as the migrant and federal programs for the Manatee School District. She will provide us insight into what the Manatee School District does to support the success of English language learners, or ELL, in our traditional public schools. And thirdly, we'll hear from Dr. Ruby Zickafoos, who is establishing an innovative elementary pre-K through 5th grade arts-infused dual language program at the charter school, Manatee School of the Arts. She will explain their two-way developmental bilingual education program. The panel members will speak in this order that I just introduced them, and each will pass the baton to the other when they finish. Remember to pose your questions in chat. Welcome, Cynthia. How about getting us started?
Thank you very much, Marilyn. I'm going to share my screen and get started. I believe you can all see my screen right now. So again, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this panel. And I would like to also thank the audience who has joined us today to discuss this very important topic. We're going to be talking about building a multilingual community in public schools. And as the program director at Unidos Now, I'm going to be talking a little bit about, hopefully I will answer some of your questions in regards to who are the Latinos, where are they from, why are we talking about the Latinos, how did they contribute to the local economy, and what can we all do to contribute to building a multilingual community in the public schools. So let's get started. And when we talk about Latinos or Hispanics, many times there's the main question is, oh, what's the difference between Latino or Hispanic or Latinx? So just to make sure that there is no confusion, and for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to be using those terms interchangeably, even though there's a difference between them. When we talk about Hispanic, we're referring to those people who were born or live in Spanish-speaking countries. For example, Peru, Colombia, Argentina, even Spain. While when we talk about Latino, we're talking about people who live or come from Latin American countries, such as Argentina, Peru, and Colombia too, but it will also be Brazil. So Brazilian would be considered Latinos, but not Hispanic. But again, for the purpose of this afternoon, you will see that I'm using the terms interchangeably because even the data that can be found sometimes do not really differentiate whether the population that was studied was indeed Latino or Hispanic. I'm sorry, there we go. So where are the Latinos? Well, the Latinos are everywhere. Many times when we talk about Latinos and jobs, it is quite common to assume that the Latinos are mostly in one sector or a few sectors, right? For example, landscaping or hospitality. And while it is true that many Latinos work in those jobs, we work everywhere. We are also working in the healthcare industry and in businesses and in the public sector and the nonprofit sector, like myself. So that's a stereotype that it's important that we become aware of and that we understand that there are Latinos in every single field and job that you can think of. Now let's talk about population growth and why is it important? Because when we look at the US Census data, the latest data from 2020, you'll see that when we compare, for example, the percentage of Latinos in our country in 2017, that was 18%. And it is projected that by 2060, 28% of the population in our nation will be Hispanic or Latino. So we are growing steadily. And as such, we have specific needs and also ways in which we contribute to the community that is important that we're all aware of. Now, this graph that you see here is really a reflection of what's going on in our state. For example, Hispanics now make up to 25% of the population in Florida, compared to 10 years ago when we were 1 in 6 instead of 1 in 4 as we are nowadays. And when we're talking about Manatee County, we'll see that 18% of the population in Manatee County is Hispanic, and that's about 71,000 individuals. And a very interesting point to mention is that around 25% of the local population, Hispanic in our county, according to the census, is living below the poverty level. So let's talk about Hispanic origins. You may wonder, where are Hispanics from? Where are they coming from? Let me tell you a very brief story. About a year ago, I was talking with a neighbor and she told me that she wanted to recommend to me an electrician who had done a wonderful job in her house. And she was very happy with him. And she said, I'm gonna give you his phone number so you can call him if you need any help in the future. Oh, and by the way, you can speak with him in Spanish because he's Mexican. So I said, oh, really? He said, well, yes, I guess so because he speaks Spanish. So I guess he's Mexican. And what I'm trying to point out with this story, which is real, is that not everybody who speaks Spanish is from Mexico. And the same thing happens in our community. So it's important that we learn a little bit about who lives in our community, where they're from. And that's why I wanted to show you a few numbers here on this slide. So we'll see, for example, that about 50% of the Hispanic population in Manatee County come from Mexico, and around 16% from Puerto Rico, and 11% from South America, and another 11% from Central America. And finally, around 8% from Cuba. So as you can see, there's a wonderful diversity of Hispanics in our community. And last but not least is around 3% from other countries like Spain. And of course, we are presenting today with the legal women voters, so we have to talk about voting, right? And it's very promising to see that the number of Latinos who continue to register to vote in Florida is increasing. From you can see here from 2008 to 2020 is increased almost double. So that's a very optimistic number. Now let's talk about Hispanic youth. When it comes to the youth in our community, there are about 70,500 Hispanic or Latinx students in our county. And that represents roughly 36% of the student population. However, out of these 36% of students who are Hispanic or Latinos, only 12% of these students are considered English language learners or ELL. And why do I point this out? Well, because sometimes it's wrongly assumed that because the student speaks Spanish at home, the student is an ELL student, or because the student came from another country, is automatically an ELL. And maybe the student went to a bilingual school in another country and speaks English very well. So again, we're talking about some stereotypes and some assumptions that I believe that the more that we learn about the facts, the better informed we are, and also the better decisions we can make on how to empower the community. A very important fact that I wanted to share with all of you is in regard to college attainment. At Unidos Now, I will mention this in a few minutes, but we put a lot of emphasis on creating a culture of post-secondary education. And if we look at the numbers, we'll see that currently in our community, combining Manatee and Sarasota counties, there's a huge achievement gap. Only 19.8% of the Latinx community who is 25 years or older has obtained a 2-year degree or higher, compared to 33.5% of the white population. So this is something that we are working very hard to change, and how we empower the younger generations is certainly going to make an impact on these numbers that we're seeing right now. And if we wonder what are the Latinx economic contributions, well, I can tell you a little bit about that. According to a recent report that has been released, the Latino population growth in Florida over the last 10 years has nearly increased 5 times compared to non-Latinos. And we are growing at a rate of 30% per year. That is huge. Now, another important contribution has to do with our human capital, right? And strong work ethic and a positive health profile. Compared to with white population, statistics show that Latinos are significantly healthy. And of course, it's also important to mention the educational attainment. Latinos are, educational attainment of Latinos is growing 2.1 times faster than non-Latinos. And there are a few more contributions that I would like to share with you. Labor force. In 2018, for example, the Latino labor force participation was 8.8% higher than non-Latinos. And let's not forget, of course, about the family values, which is a tremendous source for our community. Let's talk a little bit now about the needs of the local Latinx community. And here you can see on this slide, sadly, only less than 1% of the philanthropic investments target Hispanic population. That's very, very low. In general, funding for Hispanic nonprofits is proportionally lower than for other nonprofits. It's also a fact that Hispanics are underrepresented in the political leadership, as well as in their access to services, right? And we at Unidos Now are working very hard to support the population, but of course, we're a small organization and there is so much that we can do. I will tell you very briefly about how we do what we do. Here you see some of our wonderful team members. We call it the Dream Team, and I also call it our small but mighty team. That's truly the way that we feel about it. And what we do is basically, our vision is to empower Latinos to achieve the American dream, whatever the American dream means to each of them, because for each person it's different. But we all know that we agree on the fact that at the very base of this pyramid, we have to make sure that English literacy is achieved. Once the community learns English and can communicate in English, they can obtain, for example, a high school degree, a college degree, and they can continue advancing, right? They can obtain socioeconomic advancement, they can achieve political integration, and eventually social integration. And we do this through different programs. Here you can see our core programs. We have programs for elementary, middle, high school, college students, and also parents. And all of the programs have a multi-generational approach. The entire family is involved. For example, before the pandemic, our elementary school girls, they participated in a robotics competition, and they were coached by their parents. So it's really magical to see how the whole family gets involved. And when I say parents, it could be grandparents, uncles, aunts, anybody in the family. But when working with Latinos, it's very important to consider the whole family, not just the student. And in a nutshell, here's our impact. In the last 10 years, we have served over 3,000 students, low income, mostly first generation. We have helped students get more than $8 million in scholarships and grants. That's all free money that they obtain to go to college. And in the last 3 years, 100% of our students in our Future Leaders Academy, that's our high school program, have enrolled in post-secondary education. And my last slide is about how to encourage then a multilingual community in public schools. What can we all do to contribute so that this can happen, right? These are just a few suggestions, and I'm sure that my colleagues, Deborah and Ruby, are going to expand on this. One is build trust. That's extremely important. Without building trust, it's impossible to achieve anything. Also, involve the whole family, as I said before, like we do at Unidos now with a multi-generational approach. It's very important to make sure that parents are involved, and if there are more family members in the family, in the household, invite them as well. Proactive, active listening. Listen to them. Listen to what they are telling you. Sometimes it just takes patience, right, and the desire to listen. Be mindful of cultural and linguistic needs. It's important that you spend some time trying to get to know your community. Where are they from? So if they're telling you that they are from Honduras, then don't assume that they are from Mexico because they speak Spanish. If there's a holiday coming up that perhaps is something that your neighbor celebrates, then try to learn a little bit about it, and try to talk to your neighbor about it, ask them about it. We care. We really appreciate when people like to learn about our culture in the same way that we learn about the culture of this wonderful country. And also meet them where they are. This is another very important recommendation. And by this, I mean, for example, if you know that most of the parents of your students are working, then don't schedule a meeting with parents at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. because they will not be able to attend. Maybe do that in the evening, or maybe on a weekend after the service in church. Find a way that is convenient for them. Go where they are, and that's definitely a much more effective way in which you're going to be able to communicate and create that trust. And with that, I'm going to end and let Deborah continue the presentation. Here you have a contact information. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions. And of course, I hope that there are some questions in the chat to answer later. Thank you very much.
You're a tough act to follow there. So thank you so much for your kind words, and thank you for the information. That's very valuable. I'm gonna see if I can share my slides. Hopefully you can see them. Let me see if I can pull this up. So there we go. Again, my contact information is on this front slide. It is an honor to be here today, and I thank you so much for the invitation to come and present. And I'm excited to work with our community and to help our community learn more about our Esol students, our Spanish-speaking families, and how we can support them. Again, I know I'll answer questions at the end after Dr. Zickafoos, but again, you can put them in the chat and we'll make sure we get answers to you. And I'd also like to say that maybe you have a question that comes up later on. You are more than welcome to reach out to me and I will answer your question. You can call me, you can email me. We certainly want to make sure that we answer any questions for you. And if you're like me, a question will come to you an hour from now when we're done. So what I want to say is that Esol came to the state of Florida in 1990. Florida entered into the Meta Consent Decree, which are the state board rules which govern why we have Esol programs in the state of Florida. So it focused on 5 different issues: identification and assessment of our students that are English language learners, equal access to appropriate programming. That's all program. That might be ESE programming if a child has a learning disability. It might mean gifted and talented, AP courses, advanced courses, Cambridge courses, AVID, anything like that. Our English language learners have the right to take part in any of those programs in any school district in Florida. It also oversees the training requirement for teachers. Teachers in the state of Florida that are reading or language arts teachers are required to complete 300 hours of training. The majority of other teachers have to do, like math, science, social study, have to do 60 hours of training. We also have to monitor our students' progress yearly, and we monitor and outcome the measures of our program. And we work with the Florida Department of Education. We have to upload information to them saying, yes, as a district, we are trying to reach the needs and attempting to meet the needs of our English language learners. So I just wanted to give you a little history on that. So, and I also wanted to tell you how a student is classified as an English language learner in the state of Florida. Every single student, no matter their background, when they are registered in a public school in Florida, has what's called a home language survey, which is embedded in the registration form. There are 3 questions on the home language survey. Is there a language other than English used in the home? Does the student have a first language other than English? And does the student most frequently speak a language other than English? If a family answers yes to any one of those questions, they are screened and tested to see if they're eligible for Esol services. And just because there's a yes doesn't mean they automatically are considered an English language learner. We give them their assessment. It depends where they score. So we have many children, just as Cynthia just talked about, that are from a different language or a different background or a different country. They just may not classify for English language learner services because they speak English well enough. But that doesn't mean that they might not experience some language interference or other aspects of moving to a new culture and being embedded in a new culture in our district. So I just wanted to give you a little background because this rule and the meta consent decree cover all of the schools in the state of Florida. So again, Manatee by the numbers, right now, about 12.1% of our total district population is considered English language learners. We also have 1,656 students that have met exit criteria and have left the Esol program. We consider those students LF. At any time that these students are in this 2-year LF monitoring piece, we can reclassify them as an English language learner because they might have met exit criteria, but they still might be struggling academically with language acquisition. So we have a 2-year period where we can bring those students back into the program if they need assistance. We also have 1,394 students that are considered years 3 and 4. We call those LAs in our district. They cannot come back into the program, but their data, their testing data still counts towards our Esol population. This is new from the federal government within the last couple of years. And I think this is a big, it's huge for our English language learner population because for many years we'd exit our students and we never got to capture their success again. So it always looked like our English language learners were struggling, which is not the case. So now that we can monitor those students after they exit our programs, years 3 and 4, we can start capturing the successes of our English language learners in the district, in the state of Florida, and nationally. So I think this is a very big deal. Due to the pandemic, we haven't really had the opportunity to see the benefit of counting those, but I think as things begin to return to normal in our school districts, fingers crossed, that we'll be able to, again, look at that data and see the good things that we're doing in our district. And we also have 2,319 former Ls. We consider those LZ. Those are students that we cannot bring back into the program, and their data no longer counts towards the progress of our English language learners. But the reason I give you all of those numbers because when we add them all together, the current population, the exited within 2 years, those students whose data is still counting, and the former Ls, that is 22.9% of the total population of students enrolled in Hillsborough County, in Manatee County, excuse me. So when we look at those students, we realize that 1 in 5, a little bit more, closer to like 1 in 5.5 of our students, or 4.5 of our students were or are an English language learner. And if you know some people where English isn't their first language, they'll often tell you they don't lose the fact that they're an English language learner. They're lifelong English language learners. It's just that they have met the exit criteria that the Department of Education puts out. So I think it's very important to notice that 22.9% of our students either are or were an English language learner. That's a huge number. I will tell you that the last time the Florida Department of Education came to our district and did monitoring, they were shocked about the percentage of English language learners we had in our district. Even though just north of us, Hillsborough County has over 20,000 Ls, they still don't have 12.1% of their district is listed as English language learners. We are probably in the top 5 or 6 percentage-wise across the entire state. And I think that's important to know because people don't realize that. All right, I'm going to keep going. The goals of the Esol program in Manatee County schools is to increase the English language proficiency of our English language learners. That's basically increase academics. Academic achievement, increase how they learn to speak English. Our other thing is to support teachers in ensuring that the content they teach is comprehensible for English language learners. Because a lot of times people will say, oh, I hear students speaking English in the lunchroom. I hear them speaking English when they're out at recess, which is wonderful. That means our children are learning. But that is the survival English that children have learned as they've come into our schools. They immediately have to know how to get lunch, how to find a restroom, how to interact with their friends and their peers. So we also have to help teachers teach content area, the language of mathematics, the language of science, the language of social studies, the language of language arts, and including that social language. And then our last goal is to support families and students, because we know it's bigger than just working with students in the building. It is working with our community to ensure that not only are our children successful, but our families are successful as well. So one of the biggest things we've done as a district to help our families is that we have done some community outreach since the pandemic began. We have a dedicated Spanish phone line. We've been advertising on some of the Spanish radio stations. We've been working with the Esol department and Kevin Chapman in the superintendent's office to assist our Spanish-speaking employees, students, and families. So in the first year of our Spanish phone line, and I'll be honest with you, this line rings to my assistant's office. She received over 5,000 phone calls in the first year from parents, employees, and even students themselves. We have been able to assist families in creating register to ride accounts so their students get transportation to school. We've helped them create focus accounts so that they know how their students are doing academically in the building. We have been working on helping parents with school choice, which was open in December. So there's a lot of different things. We've helped employees sign up for benefits. We do have some employees in our district that are far more comfortable speaking their native language of Spanish than English, and that's fine. We've also held 2 Hispanic outreach fairs in November and December. In November, we did 3 days leading up to the Veterans Day holiday at the Wakeland Support Center. And then in December, we did 2 days, and we've been playing with the hours so we can figure out how to help our families and what they need. So we have brought together lots of community resources, including our friends at Unidos Now, the Manatee Literacy Foundation. We've brought together voter registration for families. We have brought together somebody from school choice. We've had somebody helping people apply for jobs within the district. We have also had MTC there. We've had lots of families sign up for English classes. And so we realize that this is definitely a need. And so it's something we're going to keep continuing. And we're working with the Palmetto Youth Center to maybe do an event on the Palmetto side of town within the next month or two, depending on where COVID cases are in the community. So that has been a huge success for the school district. I think it was a need we didn't realize was there until COVID hit. And we realized that we needed to be able to support all of our families, not just our English speaking families, but all of our families. Some other things we are doing with the district, one of the things I'm the most proud of is that we have dual language programs that are in our district at this point. There are 3 pillars of dual language: bilingualism and biliteracy, which means not just speaking another language, but being able to read and write in another language. High academic achievement in both English and in the targeted language that's in our dual language programs. Ours is Spanish in our district. And then the socio-cultural competence, which means that our students understand where they come from, where they are now, and that we are honoring their backgrounds. Benefits of dual language programs, and I'm not trying to step on Dr. Zickafoos' toes because she's going to talk more about her program, is that students become fluent in both English and Spanish. Students develop superior problem-solving skills. Students demonstrate above average performance on state assessments. I'll tell you a little bit about our programs, but Palm Beach County has had their programs for many, many, many years, and their dual language students are outscoring on state assessments every other student in their district. It's incredible. Students also developed improved motor and comprehension skills, and students show a deeper understanding of arts and culture. What we have done in our district is right now, this school year, we have 3 schools that have dual language programs. We have Daughtry Elementary, Rogers Garden Elementary, and Braden River Elementary. Daughtry was our first school that had a dual language program, so we are in year 3 at Daughtry. We have kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade. At Rogers Garden this year, we have kindergarten and 1st grade. And then our newest school is Braden River Elementary, which has a kindergarten program this year. Next year, we are adding 2 schools that will both have kindergarten at their sites. And then each current school will add a grade level. So our 2 new schools are going to be Mayaca Elementary and Palmetto Elementary. They'll both start with kindergarten. So our idea is that every year we expand out a little bit, but we also go up a grade level. So Daughtry next year will have K1, 2, and 3. Rogers Garden will have K1, 2. Braden River L will have K and 1, and then our Mayaca and Palmetto schools will have kindergarten. It's been a wonderful endeavor that we've taken on as a district. And I know that next year when we have our 3rd graders that are of assessment age, I think we're going to be very pleased at what we see. We have some incredibly dedicated teachers. Dual language has been around for years and years and years, and I know Ruby will talk more about that. But typically students in dual language programs are doing better than their counterparts elsewhere. So it's lovely that this came to this district. We're very lucky that Mrs. Saunders, our superintendent, is extremely supportive of our dual language programs. And for our schools that don't have dual language programs, we have a lot of Esol resource teachers deployed in the building to help our students who are English language learners that aren't enrolled in dual language programs. We have after school programs. We do a summer science program for middle school students. And we always look at social emotional well-being of our students as well as the academics of our students in the district. I feel very fortunate that everything we've ever tried to do, every time we decide to bring something new, we have had nothing but supportive leadership from Mrs. Saunders, Dr. Evans, Janelle Yost, and I just see some really great things happening for the students in Manatee County as we continue to grow. I know you can put your questions in the chat, and I know we're going to answer them at the end. And what I'm going to do is stop sharing my screen, and then you can, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Dr. Ruby Zickafoos from the Manatee School of the Arts. and she is going to talk about the expansion they're doing for pre-K to 5 dual language. Ruby, it's all you.
Okay, let me share my screen here. Okay, and thank you, Deborah. Thank you so much. Yes, and we are so proud of kind of what's happening in Manatee County schools. And I will add that I was in Manatee County schools for 30 years and started as a paraprofessional actually, and worked all up to being a principal. And the work that is being done by the Esol department is top notch. It's I just see them taking the need, well knowing what the need is myself, taking that and running with it. So kudos to what's going on in our district. I still consider it my home because I was there for such a long time. So, okay, so thank you for having me here. I'm very excited about my little piece. I'm going to build on what Miss Estes talked about as far as the dual language piece. And I'm fortunate enough to having an elementary school, as she stated, that is a dual language elementary school. And it will hopefully be a place for everyone to belong. So here we go. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about where the home will be. Manatee School for the Arts is a 612 school that is a public charter school, and it's considered a landmark in Manatee County because it's been in practice for 25 years. It is a public charter school, and it started when there, I believe, were only 17 in the entire state. And now there are over 300 charter schools. And it was one of the beginning schools way back when charter schools were, 1 in a million. So it's been here for 25 years. Next year will be our 25th year celebration. Currently, we serve 1,900 students from 4 different counties. The population is extremely diverse. Right now, we are 42% Hispanic. With 28 different languages. I had to kind of double check that list last night, but yeah, we are definitely 28 different languages. And with that, within the 25 years, we've seen the population kind of shift within our community, and we see the expansion and the growth of our Hispanic community, just as Cynthia was saying, and just as Deborah was saying, we've seen it just explode north of the river, and therefore our data, both school level and state level, was showing us that we needed to do something different, and we needed to kind of course correct a little bit because our ELL students were not succeeding. And so they had been talking about an elementary school for quite a while. And that's kind of when I came on board in order to go ahead and say, let's go ahead and do this and develop a dual language program within an elementary school. And so thus, MSA elementary concept was born. We just got approved at the end of the year in December. So we are a public charter school. We are part of MSA in that it will be a pre-K 12 campus, but we're separate in that it will be a pre-K 5 campus on the side of MSA, but yet all together as one school. So we have a very unique partnership with MSA. We have a plethora of history with the arts. So in that respect, the pre-K will be an arts infused dual language school. So we'll be able to really take part in partnership with MSA's 612 piece. And then together, hopefully to build the unity of that multilingual community that everyone is talking about, which is definitely growing. Our overarching goals, as Ms. Estes stated, are from the exact same for any quality dual language program. They come out of the Center of Applied Linguistics. First one being high regard for excellence and academic achievement. First and foremost, number one goal is to attain command of the English language. And point number two, the pathway to bilingual and biliterate individuals means that we want to honor the heritage language of our students and really make sure that they're carrying both of them, that they're learning English while at the same time keeping their heritage language alive and well. And then again, that commitment to developing that sociocultural competence where they recognize who they are, where they come from, and are able to kind of keep that identity as they move toward in embracing what all America has to offer. And here's what it looks like within our elementary school. Again, you see the best standards, which are the new standards adopted by the state of Florida, which is our academic excellence. The dual language piece, which is the bilingual and bilingualism and biliteracy. And then you see the arts infusion, which adds that third final focus for our school. So let's talk a little bit about our dual language model. Our dual language model, and Ms. Estes spoke about all of the wonderful benefits of a dual language model. Ours in particularly will be a two-way immersion model, which means that they're taking on English at the same time where they're taking on Spanish. So that's giving and taking of both languages. It is considered a 90-10 language model, which means at the very inception in pre-K, 90% of the day will be in a target language, which is Spanish, and then 10% of the day will be in English. Each classroom, however, will be 50% English dominant and 50% Spanish dominant. And that's where we have what we call bilingual buddies. And then when we put them together, we kind of see the magic happen, especially when they're so young as in pre-K and kindergarten, first grade. The instructional model will be a one teacher model in kindergarten and first grade and pre-K, and then a two teacher model in grades 2 through 5, which means big misconception is that, or a big question I should say is, I'm always asked, does every teacher have to be bilingual? And the answer to that is absolutely not. We want every child to be able to see themselves within our staff. So yes, we want a bilingual staff that can, from the variety of different countries, from the Latinx countries all the way to the Hispanic countries, but we also want the richness of our of the cultures that we have here in America and who have a strong English dominant language base as well. So those are the two different instructional models from the early grades on through 5th grade. And here you can see the actual language allocation when I talk about the 90-10. So you'll see the green is Spanish and the blue is our English. So in pre-K, we have a nice 10% of our day will be in English. And the question we get a lot is, well, what about the students who come in who won't understand any Spanish? What does that look like? Well, we want to ensure the community that we in no means but in any way expect the children to be confused or to be scared or to be intimidated. It's quite the opposite. Kids are very much curious about how to say different things. And as one of our trainers came in and said, if you turn on, this is where the arts come in, if you turn on music or you start coloring or you start sharing an activity, kids that young just learn to participate. The other thing is when you look at the academic piece, the 10% will be all of our alphabetic principle, our phonics, our word work, lots of the things that will make the English come easier when it comes to that 10%. And as we move through the instructional model, you can see it increases to 20, then increases to 30, then 40, and then by 3rd grade, it's a 50-50 model. We also have something called our classroom meeting, which is very unique to our program. At the beginning of the day, the teacher will introduce the agenda. If they're co-teachers, they will be introducing the day together so that the entire agenda of the day or of the week is understood in both languages. So that way, again, not causing confusion, but really setting the stage for understanding of any language. As far as the instructional allocation, I talked a little bit about this. In pre-K, we will start with 2 classrooms, kindergarten 2 classrooms, 1st grade 2 classrooms, and 2nd grade 2 classrooms with a total of 144 students. The fine arts rotation will have art, music, theater, dance, visual arts, visual arts, and physical education, PE. And one of the beautiful things about this is, and Cynthia actually talked about the poverty level of our community, Hispanic communities. And rarely do we get a chance to see our Hispanic communities actually take a dance class or a theater class. And in our school, we'll be able to offer those on a weekly basis. So that will give them that taste of culture as well. When we look at our units of study, we've gone ahead and went with a company, American Reading Company, which also offers a bilingual kind of curriculum where you see the English unit as well as the Spanish unit, because when you have two teachers working together, you really do have to understand what concepts are being done, because we want the teachers to be really well versed in conceptually what is being taught in that Spanish classroom and what is being taught in that English classroom as well. How this is going to unify us too is you'll see here this yellow strand, which speaks to our that laying the groundwork for literacy labs. When you see the blue, it's informational text. So that second quarter, every single classroom is talking informational text. When you look at that third quarter, we're looking at different genres, and then we're looking at different kinds of academic text to go along with those. And they kind of, you can go through our whole entire curriculum and see where those units bring our classrooms together. As far as academic features, and these are kind of just to give you some nuances as to what those classrooms will look like. We'll have a firm base in our readers workshop. As you could see, there's a lot of science and social studies integrated together, which again, research shows is the best way to go whenever you have a dual language classroom. So they'll be inquiry-based and theme-based so that the science and social studies is married. So again, really focusing on that academic vocabulary. We'll have a comprehensive literacy framework, which encompasses and really tries to embrace an apprenticeship mindset, which means lots of modeling, lots of demonstration, lots of think aloud. So again, really rich in language of what that literacy looks like and sounds like. We'll follow the gradual release of responsibility, where we're easing responsibility of literacy over to a student while building a really rich background and lots of word knowledge and vocabulary. And these are things that really kind of talk to not just the ELL student, but to all students. So we want to make sure that all of our students are getting that rich base of literacy in both, and along with the academics of science and social studies. So another thing that'll be unique to us is what's called the bridge. And it's basically looking at cross-linguistic bridging of both English and Spanish. This framework is not new. It's been in existence for quite a while, but the bridge is something that will be part of every lesson, every unit, or every quarter. And that's where we bring kids together to really look at and really analyze what language looks like. So if you see this chart, you can see that you have cognates where solution is the same as solución and title is very close to título. So that English and Spanish relationship is seen. And what this brings is a really high level analytics to children who are able to do this, where teachers are walking them through. And that type of thinking just really engages a student, but also builds those metacognitive skills that make for that extra achievement that Ms. Estes was talking about, that is shown throughout our state in dual language programs. Another form will be when we use illustrations to kind of, again, use that English and Spanish together. But that metalinguistic analysis throughout the day, throughout our units, is key to, again, bringing that English along and bringing that Spanish along. This is a social cultural competence that, again, we were referring to earlier. And this is where students really get to know themselves. their identities, where they come from. And for this particular component, we are going to use the fine arts. So students will be learning about different artists from different countries, music from different countries, different theater pieces from different countries. Imagine the dances from all the different Latin countries that we'll be able to expose. PE, we want to be able to embrace some of those games as well that are multicultural, and then the visual arts. So through the arts, we really want to embrace the social cultural component so that kids start to see who they are, regardless of what Hispanic or Latinx country that they come from. So other considerations, we really want the culture of collaboration to be a really deep seed within our school. And that means that collaboration in terms of building language. So every single component of our school has been thought about when looking at collaboration. So kids can talk, teachers can talk, admin can talk. Everything is about sharing language. So you saw our common curriculum. We'll also have common language, common expectations, so that when one classroom goes to another classroom, or one grade level goes to the next grade level, you're able to see and call things the same thing. Collaborative planning time. So again, when teachers are team teaching, they really have to kind of act like a married couple. So that way they are seeing and doing things that are similar, not to lose their teacher autonomy, but really be able to kind of see what they're planning so they can build off of each other when it comes to their linguistic ability. Classroom arrangements we've thought about when looking at two classrooms side by side, so they're being able to reach across hallways or next door. Co-teaching protocols, what does that look like? What does it sound like when I'm working together with someone? The switching of languages. There's been a lot of new research where it used to be that if you were in a Spanish classroom, it was the language of the block. And now we're learning about how translanguaging kind of has a little bit of leeway there, where it comes to the language of instruction versus the language of students working together. And of course, cooperative learning. We'll use the Kagan model, which is all about kind of sharing and talking and building language. Other pieces, again, I talked a little bit about the bilingual staff. We call it a bilingual mindset. Again, they have to be able to know and believe and value language. They have to believe in communication is key, that even if I don't know the words, I'm going to use pictures, drawings, realia to make sure that I'm conveying my message to the teacher, to the student, to the parent. I talked a little bit about the classroom meetings where we'll have those at the inception of every day to ensure that all of our students feel comfortable in what's coming, and whether it's in their target language or in English, that they feel comfortable in knowing what the agenda is for the day. And that instructional language where if the block is Spanish, the teacher holds on to the language of the block. But we know that students, in order to clarify what the expectations are willing to use that translanguaging with each other. And basically translanguaging is when they've studied the nature of language development in homes and in communities, they notice that actually you go back and forth. So puedo hablar español y de repente I go to English, or if not, I'll make up a word. Like in my home, when I grew up, we used to call socks, sacatines. Socks for English and calcetines for Spanish. So all of a sudden it became sacatines. So that flexibility in translanguaging is something that we want to embrace, while at the same time, the goal is children learning English, learning Spanish, and becoming biliterate by 5th grade. And again, I'll leave those questions and answers to come, but here is my contact information. And again, feel free to contact me for anything related to this or students or the elementary C as a whole. And that's it. Marilyn?
Thank you so much. We've learned so much, and we've had a few questions come in. We are have a few minutes to answer those questions, but first off, and probably Cynthia could answer this. Early on, you were indicating how it sounded like a compliment if we ask people where they're from. And some of us have been told that was rude when you hear someone with an accent ask where they're from. Could you clarify for us what would be appropriate?
Well, thank you for asking the question, Marilyn. By no means I'm an expert on diversity and inclusion, but I can tell you from personal experience and also from trying to educate myself a little bit on microaggressions, which is basically what that's referred to. And let me give you a quick example. It happened actually to me last Friday. I had some friends from Maryland visiting me, and they are originally from Peru. So we were speaking a combination of English and Spanish. We were at the restaurant and somebody asked, "Where are you from?" And my friend said, "From Maryland." And the lady said, "Oh, really? Why are you speaking Spanish then?" My friend didn't mind. I didn't mind either, but some people could be offended by that, I think that it's important that we show genuine interest in getting to know other people. And how we can do that? Well, by asking, okay, I mean, where are you from is not a wrong question, okay? But if you're, putting emphasis on the fact that the person has a strong accent, like for example, I have an accent, it could be, hurtful, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm lucky to be able to speak more than two languages. So there's nothing wrong as long as I'm able to communicate, right? Now, if you don't understand what I'm saying, that's a different story. But bottom line, I think that what matters is really the intention. And if you ask something and you notice that the person gets offended, just be mature enough to acknowledge and apologize and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. I was just curious. And that's it. I think that lately there's been a lot of, I would say, sensitivity on this topic, right? So we're all still learning on how to address others, from using pronouns and whether to use Latino or Latinx, and this is comes all in the same concept of being inclusive and respecting differences and embracing them rather than highlighting them. So again, I think it's a matter of being genuine in your interest to learn and understand, and also be humble. Nobody knows everything. We're still trying to figure out how to build a more inclusive society.
Thank you. And this is a question for Deborah. Is there any danger that ELL students might be identified as not legal and the family deported?
Not in our public schools. That is, there's Supreme Court cases that protect students, because schools are not allowed to ask an immigration status of a student when they enroll in their public school. So I like to tell people all the time, it doesn't matter if a stork dropped a student off at the front of your building. We're going to enroll them, and we are going to teach them, and we are going to love them and do everything to make them be successful learners and integrate into their school community. So we never ask a student their immigration status. If a student comes to us with no records whatsoever, we will enroll them age appropriate, just because it's the right thing to do. So there are parents that we have to kind of hold their hands and tell them, we're not interested in your immigration status. We're the public schools. It's very different. And so a lot of times we have to help our families and hold their hands and let them know that we're not here to police that information from them. So there will be nobody from a public school that ever is interested in a student's immigration status. Now, sometimes we find out because families share that with us, but it doesn't go beyond that.
Thank you. And one last quick question. So Ruby has a chance to share a little information, and then we'll wind it up. Where do you find, and maybe you can help us understand where Deborah's finding, bilingual teachers who can teach these classrooms?
That's a really good question.
That's the trick.
One thing that we have to realize is that they're here.
Yes.
There are a lot of teachers, some that are working in the system and some that are not working in the system. I have so many people, since they've heard about the elementary school, say, I was a teacher in Puerto Rico, I was a teacher in Colombia, but I have to need help with certification so that I can go back into the career that I love. That's one way. So a lot of them are already here. One of the things that we are doing is we are planning a recruitment trip to Puerto Rico, which there are a lot of displaced teachers because of hurricanes and all of the things that have gone on to that poor island. There are teachers who are not working because their schools got relocated or they're now live too far away that really want to come because remember, they are Americans. They want to come to the mainland to teach. So that's another thing. And the third thing is grow our own. There are so many paraprofessionals or just young people who want to actually teach. I know that sometimes teachers being a teacher, you get a bad rap, but I tell you what, it's the best. I love my profession and I share wherever and whenever who will listen. This is the best profession that you can ever desire to be a part of. And so I'm trying, I know that there's a couple of scholarships. I want to say the McCracken is one of them. We had lunch with the new dean of the College of Education, and he said that, you know, money's out there. We just have to kind of recruit. So again, very many ways that we are trying to recruit teachers just for those primary grades, because remember, we need all over. I mean, we do want English dominant teachers as well. But that bilingual ability is definitely a plus.
Okay, well, it's time to wrap it up so that we honor the hour that all of you have given to us. So we really want to thank the three of you for your excellent presentations. We learned a great deal. Our next topic is the second Monday in February on the 14th.